Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar on the 6 steps to effective self-service. We'll need to run a quick sound check before we get started. You'll see a poll on your screen asking if you can hear us clearly. Please answer with a yes or no and we'll be ready to go.
Yes.
Wait a few seconds for the answers to come in. Okay, super. So now our topic for today's webinar is a very relevant topic. The topic of self-service is something that customers today are really looking forward to in their interactions with business. And it is also something that simultaneously gives businesses an edge in terms of operational efficiency. So we're very lucky to have a team who has actually implemented self-service very successfully. By successful, what I mean is that they have actually been able to get a high improvement in both their customer satisfaction and in their operational efficiency. So what we'll be discussing is how you can also implement self-service in a way that actually delivers results. We'll be covering why we should be implementing self-service in the first place, and then the 6 steps to implementing it effectively. I'll introduce our speakers and then I can hand it over to them. Yeah, so I'll hand it over to our speakers. We have Mayur, Namisha, and Ashik. I'll hand it over to Mayur and we can dive in. Mayur.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for giving this opportunity to speak over this webinar. So I take care of customer experience and delivery. So anything and everything to do with the clients and customers, touch points and delivery. I've been working in customer experience product management for almost 9 years now.
Hi, I'm Namisha Gupta. I'm pre-sales manager with OzoneTel, and my job is to provide solutions to call centers on how they can effectively implement IVRs and chat solutions for their customer support.
Hello, everyone. This is Ashik from Freshworks. I take care of product marketing for the product Freshdesk, and I own the Omnichannel initiative, enabling customers to know about new features and help them adopt them, improve customer experience overall. So I'm really glad to be a part of this webinar. And let's quickly dive into why self-service is really important for an organization as well as a customer. So self-service, it simply provides options for customers to get faster solutions at their own time. I mean, rather than having to pick up the phone and waiting for an email response from an agent, the customer self-service gives customers an option to just go and find whatever information they need to answer simple support questions. On the other end, the agents are also usually held up with a lot of repetitive questions on the day-to-day basis. But what self-service does is deflect these repetitive questions and give them more time to focus on the more critical issues. So enabling them to be more productive and handle more volumes. So here we have a quick stat on the typical need of self-service across industries. So a survey by Harvard Business Review says 81% of customers try to solve problems by themselves before reaching out to a customer support agent. Whereas another stat by the Forrester says 72% of customers prefer doing self-service even before writing an email or picking up the phone. But the problem lies, or rather I would call the disconnect here, is that only 9% of customers are able to resolve their issues via self-service. This is a survey done by Gartner, and another one by HBR, the Harvard Business Review, says that 51% of calls to customer service came from customers who had initially tried self-service but then were not able to find what they wanted. So typically you can see the first couple of stats which says customers really want to know things by themselves, resolve things by themselves, even before getting in touch with an agent. Whereas companies somehow, or there is some gap between the company's delivery and the customer expectation here in terms of self-service. So we are going to deep dive into how self-service work across sectors and different channels. Namisha, please take us through what you think about like different sectors, how self-service impacts customer experience.
Okay, thanks, Ashik. So what I want to emphasize here is that self-service is not focused on any specific sector or channel. So as long as we have a good query or a good use case to solve, it can be implemented across any sectors and across all customer touchpoint channels. So I'll give you examples from various sectors that where we have done such implementations. Okay, so take for example healthcare. So we have a PathLab customer where through IVR itself customers are able to get their test reports. So they call on the IVR. If the report is completed, they get a link to download the report. If it is not completed, they get the ETR. In travel sector, one of our customers has implemented simple queries like getting the hotel addresses directly through the IVR, or getting checking the ticket status, canceling, rescheduling bookings through both IVR and chatbots. Even in recruitment, so you can do first level of screening through IVR and voice bot interviews. So or even the reference checks can be done through these, so that your managers are free to do the next level of screening of only the candidates who pass through this. E-commerce, there are multiple examples. So any e-commerce company, a logistics company can implement, has the use cases where customers want to check the status, the delivery status of their uh, 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 um, of their orders, or they want to check the ticket status. So one of our furniture e-tail customers has even implemented a simple IVR where you can get the location of their store through the IVR. So what we have found out is that implementing any single query, a single query through self-service leads to an increase of 12% in the customer contact center efficiency. So we have with us Mayur today from Delivery, which is one of the biggest logistics firms in India. And he will take us through the case study of how Delivery has implemented self-service using both Ozontel and Freshdesk. So over to you, Mayur.
Sure, Namisha. Very relevant statistics mentioned by Ashik and references given by Namisha. In fact, referring to statistics from Ashik, so those really make sense in any industry today. So wherein most of the industries ideally want to serve self-serve or are planning to do self-serve kind of approach, but in a lot of scenarios, customers are not able to self-serve themselves by the approaches that companies follow. Now, at Delivery, we started with four high-level set of problem statements when we thought of implementing this whole persona of self-serve. So one challenge that we have been facing was low customer connect. So when I say low customer connect, so before the implementation of Ozontel plus Freshworks systems into our different touch points that the customers can reach to us. So we have been having a very low customer connect wherein only a set of customers were able to connect to us, considering there were only two high level channels that were enabled. One was phone calls, another was email, and a very less automation in place. But that was one problem statement that we wanted to solve. Secondly, because most of the things were manual in place, either the agents taking calls from the call center, because of which there were longer wait times for customers, which in turn results into frustrated customers and more not really the experience that a customer would Third, overall, because of these two factors, we had lower efficiency within the whole call center piece of things. Reason being because automations and self-serve wasn't in place to an extent. So uh, overall customer resolution of queries was lower when compared to the amount of queries that we were receiving at our end. Now, when I consider all these three things, also everything boils down to cost at the end of the day, wherein definitely customer experience is at the higher end of things, but also cost is something that needs to be taken care of. So for us, cost was really one major pain point because serving customers via agents or human intervention was really costly when compared to what self-service can do for you.
I
So
totally agree with you, Mayur. So I'm just going to take a step back and want you to uh, tell our viewers on the first point, a little re-emphasis on the first point, low customer connect. So when people weren't able to connect, what happened? What was the outcome? What did they do? Can you just quickly brief on the outcomes of the low customer connect? It would be really helpful.
sure. So there are multiple phases to it. So when your customers are ideally not able to resolve their queries or reach to you because of low customer connect, so one, it results in a lot of frustration. It second, the whole thing becomes a more highly escalated issue for the whole company. Thirdly, in the longer run, you would definitely see an impact on your revenue line or whole customer satisfaction scores because what was expected by the customer is ideally not getting done and ideally not getting done in time because everyone expects an SLA kind of thing around whenever they
Right.
try to reach. If it doesn't happen in time, customers ideally get frustrated and results in a lot of churn out for your customers as well.
Okay. So let's thanks for that, and just walk us through how we solve this.
Sure. So I would say it has been a long journey and a fantastic one, wherein a lot of improvements has been done over different touch points. To mention very high level ones, so after we implemented a lot of automation self solutions into place at different touch points, today we have been able to improve our call handling capacity by 3x. So if I give you a scenario, so pre-implementation, we were receiving approximately 16,000 calls a day. But today, post the auto and self-serve implementation, we are able to receive almost 50 to 60,000 calls per day, which is like really a big improvement for us in terms of customer connect. And the interesting part is we are able to solve more than 95% of it, which brings like at least 95% of customers are getting their queries solved within the time. Second biggest change that came for us post the implementation was our call waiting time has reduced by more than 4x. Uh, because again because of self-serve happening on IVR or other different channels, customers now are able to sell them themselves and much faster than an human interaction would have helped them do so. So that's another change that has been there. So thirdly, more from a serviced customer cost. So for us, again, the cost has drastically reduced to service per customer for the reason self-serve has come into place. A lot of user, in fact, 60% of our customer queries are now being self-served. Customers can help themselves over these 60% queries, because of which our cost has reduced by 3.5x. Overall, by these different parameters we have seen an improvement. Operational efficiency on a high level for our call center fees have increased by almost 40%. And that also in a scenario when everything is now in a more measurable and trackable format.
That's simply amazing. The stats are really staggering. I'm really curious on how we went about doing that, and let's quickly jump into the 6 steps to effectively delivering self-service. So the first point that um, typically the first part of building an effective knowledge base or a self-service portal is to learn from conversations, collect knowledge from conversations. So we get a lot of repetitive queries on a day-to-day basis. A support agent does, and there are like different channels. In whichever channel they're reaching out to, we need to analyze these conversations across channels. Say, for example, we take an email. Um, what, how many number of how many requests did we get in terms of a repetitive question like when is my delivery, why is my delivery late, or when is my refund, or how long does it take for my refund to reflect back to my bank account. Any such simple queries you can filter by subject lines, and you need to collect those knowledge from the existing conversations across calls, chats, emails, and social, and probably start creating a repository of sorts to answer these questions, so that it can be disposable in a way that customers are able to find it whenever they would want to get this info. So we have different channels, and collecting knowledge from all different channels from different customer conversation is really the first step of like building a building a knowledge base. So here we also, just similar to emails and chats, how we have filters in Freshdesk. So we have another smart tracking method to collect knowledge from conversation for calls. So I would like Namisha to walk us through how it is easier for customers to gather this knowledge from call conversations.
Okay. So basically, the idea is, again, like Ashik mentioned, is basically you identify what queries, what repetitive queries your customers are asking. So normally for every call, you can categorize the calls. So you can identify your buckets, call them dispositions. And after the call, your agents can dispose the call with the right bucket. So see the attached screenshot from one of the reports from Ozontel system. You get for different dispositions, what are the number of calls you are getting. So this easily helps you identify that these are the types of calls or the queries that I'm getting, and which ones are more, and where I can effectively implement self-service. So anything which can be templatized, which does not need human intervention, can go into the self-service bucket from these different dispositions. Similarly, you can also analyze your call recordings using speech analytics tools like keyword spotting. So you can identify some keywords which the customers use while for specific queries, and you can get reports that in which calls which keywords were being used. Similarly, you'll get a report at which calls, like for which what kind of queries you got, how many calls, and then identify where all you can implement self-service. So idea is to assess all your customer touch points, uh, find out what kind of queries you are getting, which are the most repetitive queries which can be which do not need human intervention, and then move them to self-service.
Right. Absolutely agree with Namisha here, especially the type of tickets that are responded within. When it comes to calls, Namisha, that was really helpful. And when it comes to emails, we talk pretty frequently about the L1 tickets, the tickets that are not so critical, and that were resolved in probably 1 or 2 responses. So we can do the similar approach for emails as well. So let's invite Mayur to talk about how they went through this first step.
So I think Ashik, you mentioned a very powerful word, which is omni-channel. So that's the essence of it for us. So when we say omni-channel, at least at delivery, so our aspect to it is a three-step process wherein we say enable, categorize, and analyze. So when I say enable, so for us the strategy goes enable every single touch point that a customer can reach you. Uh, every single touch point, when I mean, it could be your social media, it could be your call center, it could be your IVR, it could be your WhatsApp, or any other medium that a customer might be able to reach you. Make sure that you enable those different touch points so that customers can reach you and give their uh, have a channel of conversation with the company. So once you have enabled it, so make sure that you categorize every single conversation or interaction with your customers via different channels or the omni channels that we categorize it. So for us, what at least at delivery, what we have made sure is any interaction from any of the touch points, any of the channels that customer reaches us, we make sure that we categorize into different buckets of categories, subcategories, which is more of a taxonomy structure for us. In fact, we have created the structure to the level where every category would have a SLA attached to it and a performance metric for the respective teams attached to it. Now, how it helps is this makes sure that at the end of the day, your all the interactions are categorized into buckets. Now, post your interactions are categorized into buckets. Make sure to analyze it at the end of the day, because this is what was wonderful for us when we analyzed our different category buckets. We found that almost 60% of our queries were coming into some high level 3 to 4 different buckets, which gave us a starting path wherein we started with automation workflows for these 3 to 4 buckets. And today, by doing these three-step process, we have been able to at least cover 60% of our queries be resolved without a human intervention, which is like how it helps overall is it reduces load on your call centers or other different channels wherein human interaction is required. Secondly, it brings a lot of customer satisfaction because now customers are able to self-serve themselves.
That's amazing. That's amazing, Mayur. Like I can clearly see the 60% queries being deflected, giving a lot of productivity for your agents. And we quickly move on to the next step, which is to prioritize and create content. So like like how we discussed in the earlier step of collecting knowledge from conversations, once that knowledge has been um, created, or probably when you know what needs to be published on a knowledge base, it is equally important to prioritize and create the content in a much more simpler way. So predominantly the one common challenge that customers face in self-service, I'm just recalling the stat which I pulled out earlier, where only 9% people were able to resolve issues by themselves with self-service. The main challenge was that they did not find the content more, they were not simply able to understand the content. They wanted more simpler content and not something complex that only the experts would be able to understand. So it's equally important to make information relevant. And whenever there is something complex that need to be explained to the customer, you can simply add visual aids, images or videos to probably get that seamlessly communicated to the customers. And one important thing here is to have FAQ questions, frequently asked questions. Having an FAQ section would tremendously improve the rate at which people can access these questions. So typically, how to pick FAQ questions is, you are going to track the analytics of the existing knowledge base and see what is the most asked questions, and probably categorize them into these buckets, which are made accessible at multiple places on your website. So Mayur, please walk us through how you prioritized and created content on your self-service portal.
Sure, Ashik. So like I'll take it from again. We enabled different channels. We categorized. We analyzed. Now, based on that analysis, we were clearly aware of what our customers are reaching out to us. And with this queue, we went with more of an approach wherein uh, we were trying to define a self-help portal kind of approach. Now, the self-help portal for us would ideally consist of three things: FAQs, tutorial videos for our products,
Mm-hmm.
and articles to deep dive for our customers and clients. Now, when you create this as a strategy wherein self-serve portal, so ideally what we are saying is we are exposing uh, this whole self-serve portal with a lot of knowledge to different stakeholders. So now for us as a strategy, we went ahead with an extra step of exposing this knowledge base both internally and externally to our users. Now, via Freshchat tool enables exposing this knowledge base externally via Freshchat, whereas to our call center agents, we are able to expose this knowledge base via Freshdesk. How it helps for internal agents is they are now in a better position to resolve customer queries, and which also results in faster resolution of queries. Wizard is on the Freshchat tool because as soon as users land onto your chat widgets, they will be served by self-serve knowledge bases, wherein again they'll be able to help themselves. Now, the very interesting part with knowledge bases is these knowledge bases are also indexed via search, which means if a user has some queries in mind, then typically he follows a search engine path wherein he'll go to Google or some other search engine, try typing out for that query. The very interesting part with this knowledge base is you can make them indexable via search, because of which a lot of search queries will also be resolved by your knowledge base. So in all, I would say it's a good strategy with no human intervention required. And definitely, I would say you should keep tweaking your knowledge base basis the type of queries that you analyze over the first step.
I completely agree with Mayur here, and especially the point that he brought out was very insightful. Having a foolproof knowledge base not only helps customers but also enables agents to get onboarded quickly and know your products quickly so that they can ramp up their support game as quickly as possible. So thanks for that, and we are going. Okay, accessibility, simplicity, and empathy are three things that you have to probably take into consideration while prioritizing and creating content. Once the content and the self-service portal is ready, the better we use, or the more options in terms of channels we are integrated in, the more usage the customers are going to be, the more helpful it will be for customers. So it's the next step would be, it is equally important to integrate knowledge base on all channels, be it on chat, web forms, call, and all your social channels as well. The most ignored part when it comes to self-service or integrating self-service to a particular channel, I wouldn't call it channel still, is search engines. um, if I'm a customer and I need help even before going to a website, and there are a huge chunk of customers like me, and what we usually do is we Google particular whatever issues we have and try to figure out answers right from Google rather than walking to the website. So it is equally important to keep your knowledge base findable or probably searchable, and add um, the keywords, identify the keywords which customer use to find their answers. So it is really important to have your knowledge base integrated on all channels. And while we speak of channels, there is a poll coming up, and I would want you to probably take a look and probably attend that. And While you do that, Mayur is going to explain how delivery integrated their knowledge base or their self-service into different channels. Mayur, please take us through how you did it.
Sure. So over the screens, you will see two screenshots from Fresh Chat tool. So wherein as a strategy within the chat or the self-serve portal of ours, what we have done is we try users landing onto knowledge base, wherein we have very heavily defined different buckets of queries that we have analyzed. Four high-level buckets that we analyzed post our interactions with the customer over different channels, and we have tried to define a good deep dive knowledge base around these four buckets, wherein customers can come onto these chat widgets and self-serve themselves. The very interesting part post we implemented this is today often X percentage of interactions that we receive over chat on our websites, almost 70 to 80% are being catered by only the knowledge base, which essentially means that we are able to even reduce the loads on our agent chat agents which are there at the back end to help the team. So this also gives voice to the fact that customers are really looking forward to self-help themselves rather than at the first point looking for a human intervention overall.
Great. I mean, the four categorization is something that every self-service portal need to have, because these are broader terms where customers would be able to pick and choose what they want. And the outcome is typically better accessibility and improved CSAT. Mayur, just tell us the impact you had on CSAT once you introduced this.
Okay. So the very interesting part has been, so one, post the implementation of both the tools or the whole structure of omni-channel approach, we made sure that we'll be measuring CSAT across different interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the very interesting part we have seen is we are able to see at least 25% increments in our CSAT scores post this self-serve and automation implementations at various channels. So which in a very short span of time, around 3 months, is really, really a good improvement overall. Another interesting side that came from the whole CSAT thing was also we are now able to have customer voices available on what are pain points that they are facing, which in turn we keep on tweaking into our knowledge base so that next time when the customer lands again onto our touch points, he is better served now the next time.
Amazing. So we are moving on to the next part, where the next step of effective self-service is by once the self-service portal is ready, we also need to probably take it one more step closer to the customer by automating it and deflecting it with bots. So typically by doing this, we are suggesting articles on ticket forms. The solution suggester on Freshdesk typically does that, where when the customer is typing a query, or probably when the customer reaches the ticket form, when they need to create a ticket for one of their issues, they are typing a subject line of, whenever they're typing a subject line, they are suggested related solution articles so that they can find the relevant article and probably get their answers there instead of raising a ticket. So it's as critical on when you want to like automate self-service and deflect. And the other part is deploying answer bots on website live chat. So similar to what Mayur had explained in how delivery implemented self-service on their website. Again, bots is another way to take it one step closer to the customer and make it more conversational so that customer doesn't feel they're doing all the work in finding the answers. They can typically type in the answers, and probably the answers are delivered by the bot. And using voice bots in IVRs, that's something that's really cutting edge technology coming up. And probably Namisha would walk us through how to automate self-service and deflect with voice bots and IVRs.
Yeah, so basically, so what we've covered till now is like you identify your queries, you integrate them with your knowledge base, and then you go ahead and automate it. So in voice bots and IVRs, what we do is that simple queries, like the examples which delivery Mayur has given, is like, you know, finding your order status or your delivery status, or you know, you want to reschedule or cancel some delivery, or you know, change the timings, anything. So all this we have what you can do is you can just automate it on the IVR. IVRs are integrated with your internal IVRs or slash voice bots. They are integrated with the database directly, and the minute the customer you know, comes on the phone and gives their query, they get a response. So there is no wait time. It is totally automated. It is very conversational, very easy to use, and there is no agent intervention required in all this.
All right, so that's simply brilliant, having voice as its bots. So Mayur, take us through how delivery did it in terms of integrating and automating bots to deflect tickets.
So, adding to the point that Namisha mentioned, so IVR is one major channel for us wherein the customer interactions happen. In fact, for customers, is largely calling to a particular number, wherein the IVR first takes care of queries and then it moves to call center. So for us, IVR implementation is on a very deep dive level, wherein we have very complex integrations across internal and external systems. Basis a lot of analysis of customer queries via bucketization or taxonomies that we defined, we have been able to at least cover 60% of the queries as auto-resolved via IVR as well. Wherein, for example, if I talk about few categories, like a lot of people reaches out to us for tracking their shipment details. There's always a lot of people will reach out to us for urgent pickup and urgent delivery. And these are the queries that we feel does not require a human intervention as such. And the customers are really happy to help them self-serve over these queries, because these are not ideally complaints. These are ideally more of enquiries to per se or requests to per se. So we made sure that at least these major buckets, which cover almost 60 to 70% of our whole pool of queries that we receive, we have implemented IVR and internal automations to the level so that it can be solved auto for people. Now, how does it help us? Because you can self-serve users for these queries. There'll be very fast resolution for these kind of queries, because they don't have to wait for the call center agent taking the call and responding to these queries. And secondly, also it will have a direct impact on your cost, because it does not require a human intervention, which is at least 5 to 6 times more costly than a automation or a self-serve resolving a query. Also, overall, because it is helping you faster resolution of queries and without much hassle for the customer, it also it also improves your CSAT scores overall, because customers are more satisfied now.
Correct. That's a very valid point, Mayur. Especially when someone who wants to know their order centric information, I think bots are one of the great ways to probably deflect that. Even knowledge base or any self service, rather a knowledge based portal might not be able to serve it. Bots would be the right way to go. I totally agree to you, Mayur. So
So yeah, so
yeah,
I
what do
think,
you think, Namisha, about this?
yeah. So the way the way Mayur has described, so basically the whole idea of implementing self-service, in addition to reducing your costs, is to increase your customer satisfaction, because it should, the customer ultimately, or what we want is happy customers. And unless we track the feedback on your on the self services or all the implemented or that we have implemented, we will not know if it has been done right. So the next step is the most, I would say, the most critical, is to track, collect feedback from all existing conversation channels. So on articles, we can take upvotes and downvotes on the articles. We can implement CSAT surveys on your emails, chats, calls, IVRs. So these are very easy to implement. So after your call, your is done, your chat is completed, you've resolved a ticket, so you can send a simple CSAT survey and ask for customer satisfaction. So that is how you are able to understand if what we have implemented is has that really resolved the query for the customer, or not, are they happy with the whole process or not. And there could be this would also help, the customer should always have a method to escalate. So implementing self service, one of the major point is that it should be very easy to use for the customer, and it should not be too much self service that even if they have a very critical query, they are not able to reach the agent. So getting all that feedback, tracking it, measuring it, that is the key point in the whole exercise.
Absolutely agree, Namisha. Listening to the customer is equally important to whatever efforts you're putting, and it's a great validation for how the self-service or whatever things we do to improve customer satisfaction helps. So, Mayur, again, please walk us through how your process of listening to customers and collecting feedback works.
Sure. At delivery, so ideally the approach that we follow is, so we make sure that every interaction that has been closed uh, on any of the channel that we talk about, ranging from IVR to chat to social media, we make sure that we have a feedback mechanism in place, either in form of surveys, either in form of upvotes, downvotes, or ratings at different places. So now how delivery implements is using again different features within tools for horizontal or Freshworks, wherein post a call resolution or post an IVR attempt, we make sure that we have a feedback survey going out wherein customers respond and we take care of the feedback that is being shared. Now, how it helps is in two ways. One, you get to know positives within your structure. Second, you also get a lot of improvement pointers or pain points that the customers have. In fact, in our case, it has resulted in giving out a lot of buckets wherein delivery has been able to improve on. Because without feedback, it's more of an assumption that a company might have, whereas post a feedback, it's more about validation to what customers are saying, and you can work on those validations. For us, only so we take feedback more in the form of both CSAT and NPS, wherein a very solidified process of measuring both CSAT and NPS score is at place. And as I mentioned before, we have been within a short period of time also been able to see positive trends in our both CSAT and NPS scores, wherein CSAT we can see 25% improvements within a short period of time post implementation. The good part is because this is the feedback also acts as a channel of engagement with your customers, so they feel more engaged, and they feel that yes, this is a company which listens to their voice and acts on their pain point.
Right. I totally agree to you on that. So again, having all the 5 steps, it is equally important to measure, refine, and repeat. Namisha, what do you think about the entire 5 steps and how to sustain that.
Yeah, so I now we've implemented, we've seen we've taken the feedback. The idea is to keep repeating the process. It is a ongoing process. There is no end to it. Okay, we have to keep updating our information, our databases, our knowledge bases regularly. We have to keep listening to the customer regularly, and we have to refine our self service, see what can be done, what more can be added, where all escalations need to be added. So whole thing is it's a circle. It's an ongoing process. There is, so because the customer needs, the queries, they also keep changing. So it's not like we've reached a specific NPS score, so we are done. It's never like that, because then there might be some new something new that you've introduced. As companies also, we grow there, as customers also, their queries change. So just keep your ears open to the customer feedback, and keep updating and keep refining your process, and that's the key to have happy customers at the end of the day.
Correct.
And so Mayur, tell us about your process now of how you are going about doing the refining of this self-service that you've implemented.
Sure. So for us, again, it's more of a stepwise process wherein delivery as a strategy makes sure that we enable different touch points that a customer can reach to us. Post we enable, we make sure that we categorize and analyze all different interactions that we have over these touch points. Post we analyze, we make sure that we keep on refining these different mm, touch points to enable more and more self-served and in a way the customers expects them. And we keep on tweaking this process regularly over a period of time. Now, as I have been saying, over 3 months of implementation of self-service, we can definitely see an improvement of 25% in customer satisfaction in scores. And I always believe in the fact that if you really want to measure it, then you really have to collect it. So till you don't collect it, you don't measure it. So enable your customers, measure what they are saying, analyze what they are saying, and keep on refining it over a period of time. Uh, Still at delivery, we would say we are still in a stage of, and we will continue to be in stage of refining and improving our self-service approach, as we believe this is more of an ongoing process and a never-ending process, because you should always focus on how can you delight your customers by providing next stage of customer experience to person.
Perfect, perfect. That sums it up. You beautifully summed it up, Mayur. I totally. There is no better way to sustain customer satisfaction by just putting more and more effort in measuring, refining, and just repeating that. So we are open for questions, and it's really been a pleasure doing having you, Mayur, and we as we do that, like we quickly move into the question and answers part.